We are so excited to have you guys. We appreciate all the good energy. You guys spending your time with us here at the Ladies First Women in Tech Conference. I'm Jonathan Jokes, AJ's partner in the Midwest Tech Project, and this is really spectacular. We have a special guest that we've had come all the way from Detroit, Michigan. How many of you ladies have been to Detroit before? Awesome. Everybody's been to Detroit. That's great. We have a young lady, Miss Jeseekia Vaughn, who's going to be speaking to you guys about the importance of technology and how you can get into the industry and why the workforce is open and needs young people like yourselves who are leaders to be a part of it. So I'm going to introduce her real quick. So Miss Jeseekia Vaughn was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. She's a graduate of Wayne State with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. She's a part of the National Society of Black Engineers. She is also an alumni of Grand Circus, which is a coding company that you guys should get familiar with here in Grand Rapids and also in Detroit that teaches people front end and back end coding. Jeseekia got her start instructing career changers by helping to develop curriculum for coding boot camps and hosting office hours for students like yourselves at Grand Circus, while also serving as a teacher's assistant for the Girl Develop It Detroit chapter. Program has inspired Jeseekia to venture into entrepreneurship with businesses that allow her to focus on what she loves. She transformed her freelancing work into fully developed LLC, which provides web app development in a variety of programming languages and mentorship opportunities for aspiring web developers and so forth. Sorry, I lost my page, but I want to get this right. Ms. Vaughn, Jeseekia, behind me, also founded TrainX.ai. Am I saying that right? Okay, TrainX.ai, a program providing training in artificial intelligence and machine learning in Detroit. Those are two concepts I'm sure she's going to introduce all of us to when she gets on the mic here. There's an emphasis that she has to get people of color, which are very much underrepresented within the tech industry, trained to be a part of the workforce. And the tech workforce is one of the fastest growing workforces in the country. So when you're looking for jobs, when you're looking for places to start a business and you want to make a lot of money, obviously we're all here because tech is very exciting in that way. One of the reasons tech is exciting. Currently, Jeseekia is one of the 15 people selected for the 2018 Hackers Fellows cohort, very prestigious, where she is looking forward to developing connected car microservices as a software engineer for autonomic. She enjoys the endless opportunities, she enjoys the endless possibilities to create things when you combine software and hardware development. We are so excited to welcome Ms. Jeseekia Vaughn to Grand Rapids. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. All right, I think we can turn this mic off. Where are we? I don't want to have too much. Oh, I should turn it off. I should turn it off myself. Okay. All right, good morning, ladies. How are you today? Oh, you all responded to me. Thank you. Okay, so today I really wanted to kind of think about what are the things that I wish that somebody could have told me when I was your age if I had the opportunity to know so much earlier on that I wanted to be in technology? Like, what are the things that really make that possible? And to me, I think the biggest thing is just all about knowing yourself, knowing what you're interested in, and not being afraid to go after the things that you love. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means to me to know yourself and why that's so important, and then how that kind of helps me in my journey as well. If we do have time, I'll answer questions at the end, but if not, I'll also be around just for a moment for you guys if you want to connect with me after, okay? So, as you said, my name is Jeseekia Vaughn. I mostly write code, but I like to build a lot of different things. Sometimes it's learning how to sew, or learning how to do needlework, or learning how to build a bench. I like building things. I've always liked building things and putting things together. Right now, the way that I do that is typically with writing code. If you care about social media, as a lot of us do, my Twitter handle is @MetaDevGirl, so please feel free to follow me if you want. So first, I'll introduce myself. and let you know a little bit more about me. Like, I feel like people think that software engineers are like this certain type of person, and I like to think I'm a little bit more interesting than that. Hopefully you'll agree with me at the end of this. So firstly, my name. My name is Jeseekia. So not Jessica, specifically not Jessica, although I love all the Jessicas in the world. But I do have a name that's unique and that's specifically not Jessica, and I feel like the name that I have has really kind of grown along with myself. So when I guess when my mother was pregnant with me, my name was supposed to be Jessica, right? So you know how people talk to the baby, they talk to your stomach, and you're like, oh, Jessica, 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 right? And then when we got to the hospital, my mom has me. I guess she's under medication, and then my dad goes off and he does this thing. He's like, how about we just make it a little unique? And he just came up with the spelling and just decided, like, she is not Jessica, she is Jeseekia, and nobody else had a say in it. And honestly, it took me so long to really appreciate the fact that I had a unique name. And I know for some people that can be a challenge, right? Because you want people to respect you, respect who you are, and respect where you're coming from. And especially that starts with your name. And so early on, I think I was in elementary school when I started to really think about like how my name made me different as opposed to thinking about it in a negative way. And as I've grown, I really think that my name has become like a benefit for me because you know if you've seen Jeseekia. Like, I've literally never run into another Jeseekia before. So as I've been building my career and being out in the open, it's so easy for people to find me in particular. And to me, I found that to be a benefit. So my name is Jeseekia, and to me, my name, people always ask me, what does it mean? It means whatever you want it to mean. To me, like I said, it's a benefit. It means that whenever somebody comes up to introduce themselves to me, and they're like, oh, my name is Brian, and I say, oh, my name is Jeseekia, and then they're like, wait, what? And then they have to take a step back, and they have to actually ask me again, and they have to repeat it, and then maybe even they ask me a question about it. But that gives them an opportunity to actually spend more time to get to know me as opposed to just rushing through an introduction and completely forgetting me. So I like to think of that as a benefit. I'm a software engineer, and so right now, the thing I'm most excited about, as Jonathan mentioned, is that I'm going to be working on software for connected car services. So basically, writing programs that can control vehicles, that can get data from vehicles for huge automotive companies like Ford, which is actually Autonomic's biggest supplier as well as their owner. So the thing about this role and why it's so special to me is that over the past 3 years, I have been growing my career as a software engineer. And I started from knowing literally nothing about coding to now where I felt like I finally found the job that I want, on the team that I want to be on, with the amount of money that I want to make, and with the opportunities to grow and learn the ways that I want to. So that is what I'm doing professionally, but I try to do so many things outside of just work because I feel like if all you do is work, then you'll get to the end of life and just wonder, like, what could I have done more with my time? So I realized the other day, I guess I'm what you call an entrepreneur. I have been freelancing for a while. If you don't know what freelancing freelancing basically means you kind of sell services. Usually we say freelancing in the web industry, and you think about a person who you can go to them directly, and then they can write maybe a web page for you, or they can build a piece of software for you. And you could just work one-on-one with that person instead of working with a bigger company. So for me, it started out just when I first started as a web developer, I did not have any experience, and nobody wants to hire anybody with no experience. So instead of, I was a little too afraid to apply to jobs, so I just decided, well, what if I build these projects for people? So people kept asking me to build stuff, and it was kind of terrifying, but I was able to at least take on a few projects that let me grow and let me build my confidence and build my portfolio. And so eventually I decided, okay, well, it can't just be me. I want to train other people. I want to bring other people up and give them the opportunity to start their career. And I want to just help more businesses. So that is how I started my web development company. And then as well as the artificial intelligence training company, which we mentioned, which is trainx.ai. And the thing about TrainX, as well as the career that I'm moving forward now, like artificial intelligence and machine learning, these are some big concepts that people have been pushing off for years and saying, oh, computers are never going to do this, computers are never going to do that. And now that we finally have the ability to actually make things automatic, to make computers learn and to learn from data, the artificial intelligence industry is pretty much the next wave of where technologists are going. Now, to me, I think it's important that we're training people for this, because what typically happens behind the scenes is, in my work, everybody that I know, they're only studying two things. They're studying artificial intelligence or something called blockchain. And the reason why they're studying is because they know that this is where their companies are going. But for those of us that are outside of the industry, we don't always hear that information. We just see the job postings. And the job postings right now aren't saying artificial intelligence, because companies are still working on that. But we want people to be prepared for those roles and to be the first to get into those roles and actually become experts, as opposed to lagging behind. And so if there's one kind of, I would say, piece of technology I would recommend you go and do a little bit of research on, it would be artificial intelligence, also, or blockchain technology. But I'm a little bit more into artificial intelligence. So I'm also an instructor. I actually started out teaching 3rd through 5th graders engineering for an organization called the National Society of Black Engineers. And we have a summer engineering camp, and so that's kind of where I got my chops, or learned how to communicate, I would say, complicated technical concepts, because I think we all remember 3rd grade, 5th grade. Like, you don't want to hear about a hard math. All you want to think about is going outside in the summer, playing with your friends. And so that was the opportunity for me to really learn how to explain these concepts. And then I took that knowledge with me. And so I've worked with all different grade levels. And then, as Jonathan mentioned, I eventually became an instructor for Grand Circus, and that allowed me to basically help career changers. So folks that came in and they wanted to go from like 0 to hero as far as becoming a software developer, and they do that in 2 months. So I'm very passionate about teaching. I feel that everything that I learn, I want somebody else to know. And I think that that's an approach that if more people took, we would have less issues of diversity and seeing people like us when we walk into certain rooms. And then another thing, so I'm a future podcast host. So just to show you that there's other things out there that you can do with your knowledge, one thing that some of my friends and I are doing right now is that we decided to start a podcast, because we felt like when we looked for podcasts, we didn't see anybody necessarily who we felt like we could identify with that was talking about being Black in technology or being a woman in technology. And so that's something that we wanted to do, and so we're just going to do it. And I'm excited that we live in this world that we do now, where if you want to go out and start something, you want to go out and put information out to people, you have the internet and you can do with it what you please. Obviously, talk to your parents first, but you have the ability to go out there and share whatever information that it is that you want, or to look for whatever information that you need, okay? So this is one of the things that I'm doing to put more information out there so other people can feel comfortable to come into the industry. And then for fun, I like to do something called aerial acrobatics. So I'm an aspiring amateur. I actually just started last year, and I'm the type of person that likes to take challenges. So maybe that's why I like software. But aerial acrobatics is very hard. It is just as hard as it looks. It's actually harder than it looks. And to make it look pretty, it hurts. But at the same time, it's so rewarding because you see yourself grow, and every time you try a move, you fail so many times, but when you get it right, it just feels so great. And so what I did last year was I was like, oh, I'm just interested in going and doing something. So I just randomly took this class, and then I kind of got into it, and I kind of felt a little bit like, I think I can do a show. Like I was just, I don't know. I wanted to kind of show off a little bit, not gonna lie. I worked for showing off though, because that was a hard show to do, my first show, but now I'm hooked. So I don't think I'll be giving this up anytime soon. But like I said, I think that that idea of like taking challenges is really what brought me into software, and it shows through in all the different things that I do from day to day. All right, go back one more. So I'll tell you a little bit about my path, and then I'm going to talk about like what I think is important, and I'll sprinkle in some stories about my experience as well to hopefully help you understand where I'm coming from. So when I was in high school, I was a vocal performance student. I was a choir kid, essentially, and I spent all my time in choir. I started doing classical voice training from ninth grade, and eventually I became a section leader in my choir and in our small ensembles, advanced ensembles, and I basically did a lot of competitions, and so singing was my life. I also knew that I liked math, but I just really didn't know what to do with it. Like, the only options I ever heard was, you could be a math teacher. And I will promise you that I tried to go and be a math teacher. Like, I went and sat in elementary school class, and I love those kids to death, but it just really wasn't for me. I just felt like that wasn't my place. And so I didn't know what else I could do with math. I didn't know what I could do with science. I just really had no idea. And so I said, well, I know that I've been singing, and I know that I'm good at that. So that's what I decided to do when I got to college. So for 3 years in college, I was a vocal performance student. So my whole life was about eating the right things and waking up at a certain time and mostly practicing, which I love to sing and I love to perform, but I literally hate practicing. Like, I never practiced. And that is so sad. I do not recommend you all do that. I just never practiced because I didn't get anything out of it. I felt like I sounded awful whenever I practiced, and things just never went well. I just liked the performances, but what I quickly learned was that the practice part was the differentiator. So I started to look at the people around me, and I realized, like, I'm still just surviving on talent, and now it's getting to a point where it's going to be pretty obvious to my instructor that I don't ever practice my music outside of our lessons, and it's going to be obvious when I get out and try to start a career that I'm just not as passionate as the other people around me. So I made a very hard decision of switching my major as a senior in college. So everybody looked at me like I was completely nuts. Yes. People still look at me like that when I tell them the story, like, oh, why would you do that? And then, of course, instead of just changing to something like similar, I decide to make a whole switch and say, oh, I'm going to go into mechanical engineering. And honestly, I really just picked mechanical engineering because I was like, oh, I like to put stuff together. And that was pretty much all I thought about. So I went into the mechanical engineering program. I really found that I enjoyed what I was learning in engineering. And I did try a computer science class, but it felt so painful. I was sitting in the computer science class, and it was just like none of us felt like we knew what was happening. We felt so confused, and the teacher was like, no, it's fine, you're doing good. And we're like, you just don't want us to drop the class, so you won't get in trouble. So we didn't believe him when he was trying to reinforce that we were doing okay. At the end of the semester, I somehow got a B+. I still don't know how I got a B+, because I don't remember anything that I learned, literally anything that I learned. And it really just made me want to stay away from coding forever. I said I would never code ever again. That's what I told myself. And so I just kept going with mechanical engineering. I did have this opportunity at some point to go and work for Grand Circus, which is, like we said, it's a company in Detroit, and they do coding boot camps. And I had no idea what Grand Circus was, and I also had no idea what, like, the tech community was. Like, I knew more about traditional engineering, like mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, maybe even like civil engineers, these like more traditional fields, but I really didn't know what people meant when they said, oh, I work in tech. And so Grand Circus really exposed me to that. And then I started kind of sitting in on these classes, which were programming classes, but they were just so different from the classes that I took at the university. Like, for one, I felt like they were speaking in English that I could understand, like they were using normal words. I felt like the teachers cared about what I was doing, and they interacted with us more instead of coming to a lecture and you just sit there and then you just have no idea what's going on. I felt like the people that we were learning from, they really wanted us to learn, and it made me feel comfortable to ask questions and to try and not be so scared to fail or to get something wrong. And so that kind of really just like, I got hooked. And I just couldn't believe that I took a whole class on the same concepts and I hated it. And then I went to a completely different experience and it was the most amazing thing that ever happened. And so then I just went all in. And one thing about me is like, if I like something, I just go all in. So that's when I said, okay, well, I'm going to take a class. So I took a night class to learn web development. And then I said, oh, I'm going to build some projects for people. So I built these projects. And I was so terrified along the way. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say I'm just like brave. And I was like, oh, please, please pay me so I can build websites for you. Because I was afraid that what I built wasn't going to be good enough. Or I was afraid that what I built was going to be terrible, they wouldn't like it, or that I just would never get it done. But I grew and I learned over that time. And then I had, an encouraging friend who said, you should TA for girl development. And I was like very terrified. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't think I'm ready. And she was like, no, you absolutely are. She low-key forced me just a little bit, but that's okay because that's what friends are for. And so I started to TA, and I started to realize like, oh, maybe I might be good at this teaching thing, like better than I thought I was. And eventually me teaching with girl development and teaching all these other outside courses allowed me to actually get a job teaching full-time at Grand Circus. And I started at Grand Circus as an intern. I was there for 3 years. And I went from being an intern, literally making coffee, to actually teaching the students. And to me, that was like one of the most rewarding processes. So I also took a coding boot camp. So there was a point when I felt like, okay, I'm ready to go out into the industry, but I don't want to do front-end development. So front-end development is like, I don't want to build the website. Like, I don't care how it looks. I want to build the back end of the website. Like, I want to do the part where we figure out how things work. That's what I wanted to focus on. So I took a boot camp to make me feel more comfortable with that. From here, I basically have been building my career, like I said. And so one thing I want you to know is that there's a lot of different ways into technology. Whatever way you find is the right way. Okay, so whether you start right now and you say I'm going to a computer science program, or whether you decide, oh, well, I'm just going to learn on my own, or I'm going to learn from a friend, or I'm going to learn from a mentor. That's okay. However you learn is okay. One thing I do love about technology is that not everybody comes from the same background and not everybody learns the same way. And so people are a lot more open to different ways of learning and teaching. Okay, so now let's talk about knowing yourself and being yourself. Hopefully you won't hate me for saying these things because I'm sure you hear it more than enough, but I don't think that we hear it as much as we really should. I think that knowing yourself and being yourself, especially in this industry, is so important, and it's what makes you go to the next level. So when I say know yourself, like, there's often times where I walk into a room and people think they know exactly who I am and what I'm there for. Usually they don't think I'm going to the front of the room, that's for sure. And they definitely don't think that I'm going to be the one leading the presentation or teaching. Usually for one, think I'm a high school student and that I'm just there, or I'm a bystander or an intern, and I'm not. But I know that I'm not. So when I walk into a room, I never feel like, or I never think about, this is what people think of me. I think about, this is who I am, and that's how I approach a situation. And to me, having that confidence is so difficult. It's something that you work on every single day. But as you build and as you grow, you become better at it, okay? So, when you know yourself, nobody can tell you anything about yourself because you already know exactly who you are. And you might not feel like you know yourself yet, but you definitely want to take the time to understand, what is it that makes me happy? What are the types of things I like to do? Who are the types of people I like to be around? And kind of take steps from there. So yes, I love Drake, and Know Yourself is a Drake song. And to me, like, That's a very old, it's not that old, it's like an old CD, but I listen to this song like very regularly. Like it's one of the things that gets me hyped up, okay? So, like I said, when he says like, I've always been me, I guess I know myself. Like I know myself, so I don't need anybody else to tell me anything. And even if people do come at me with things that I feel is inappropriate or I feel is misinterpreted, it doesn't bother me as much because I know that I can just explain a little bit more about me. I could just tell them where I'm coming from, and that usually changes the dynamic of the situations. So another thing that I think has been helpful is being able to find something to focus on. So like when I was in high school, I had one focus. That was going to college. It wasn't the most specific focus, and it wasn't even a focus that I chose for myself, but it was my one focus. So everything that I did was all about going to college. The high school that I went to was about going to college. Every time I went to class, it was about going to college. And I think that when we have that one thing to move towards, it makes it so much easier to do day-to-day things, okay? So you want to find something to focus on. Maybe you're focusing on your friends. Maybe you're focusing on your family. Maybe you're focusing on your future. But if you focus on one thing and you always think about that one thing, you are, like, even mentally, you're allowing yourself to move further and further towards that goal. You definitely need to be your biggest fan. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to raise their hand on this, but I can say personally that when, like, especially in high school, I was like my biggest hater, honestly. Like, when it was time to apply for schools, I was thinking, oh, that school's not going to accept me. I'm not going to be good enough. Oh, well, so-and-so is going there, so most likely that's not a place for me. I really, really, truly took the time to box myself into this one little area and say, I'm not good enough for all these things. And it didn't matter how well I performed on a test. It didn't matter how well I performed on grades. It was all in my head of me telling myself that I couldn't do something and just being too afraid to try it. And, you know, if I could go back now, I really wish that I didn't think that way, although I'm glad that I took the path that I chose. If you can't, like, support yourself and tell yourself good things, then you can't expect anybody else to. The mental thoughts that we have of constantly telling ourselves we're not good enough, those are the issues. Those are things that really, those are the biggest things to me that prevent somebody from being successful when they're trying to get into technology. When I've had students and they couldn't get past the fact that they felt like they weren't good enough, that's the only time I ever saw somebody fail. I never really saw somebody fail at a boot camp or getting a job because they weren't good enough. Because if you continue to practice, you will learn. But if you keep telling yourself you're not good enough, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how nice you are. You're just not going to go after those things. So a little bit of advice from fancy people, because you might not believe me. I have a few friends. You don't have to believe me that I know them, but first and foremost, my homegirl Riri. Now, to me, I didn't get to call them on the phone, I'm not gonna lie, but I do believe that these are like the few things that they would tell you if they were standing here today. So to me, Rihanna would say that you should explore your talents. Sometimes they don't seem to overlap, and that's okay. You could do 5 different things, as long as you're passionate about them all. And honestly, if you love them enough, you can find a way to mix them together. So I've always been that type of person, just go out and do random things. So people are like, well, you sing, and then you do acrobatics, and then you do engineering, and then you do this and you do that. And it's just like, yeah, you know, if I find it interesting, I just try it. It doesn't matter if it fits into a certain mode. I just try new things. I think Miss Michelle Obama would tell us, be serious about your success. Education is so important, and there's different levels of education, especially in this day and age. There's so much that you can learn just by taking the time to search the internet. There's so many free classes that you can take. To me, YouTube is my favorite. I spend so much time on YouTube. Sometimes it's meaningless videos that rot my brain, and most times it's me learning something for work. But no matter what it is that you're passionate about, take the time to be serious about it. there's a time for fun, but I think there's also a time to make sure that whatever's important to you, you put the time towards it, and that you try to be successful. So then my other friend here, I think Uzi would tell us, like, be different and don't apologize for that. Like, there is literally nothing wrong with being different. The problem that we have in tech right now is everybody is the same. We can't solve problems because it's like a very narrow group of people that are making decisions. When it's more of us in the room that are different and we have different things to add to the conversation, that's how we make things better. That's how we make technology that's better for everybody, and that's how we make technology that's open to everybody. That's also how we make environments that are open to everybody. So as hard as it is, especially middle school and high school, it was so hard to just be different. Like, we all just kind of wanted to crowd together. Sometimes now today I still want to do that, but I really have found that people found me more interesting that I was different, and they wanted to engage with me, and that helped me to embrace that a little bit more. And then, of course, President Obama. I think don't be afraid to fail. Maybe some of you are a little young for the election, but when I was 18, that was my first time voting for a president. And so many people were afraid that it just wasn't going to happen. And why? Because it never has. Or why? Because they don't think that people wanted it. But he wasn't afraid of that. He took that time to go run for president. Like, to me, I'm thinking, like, failing on a national level is so embarrassing. Like, I can't wrap my mind around it. But the fact that he was able to think, like, it doesn't matter that nobody's done it before, I'm going to try it. You really cannot be afraid to fail. In technology, you just fail all the time. You literally fail until you figure something out. Like, you try and try and try. It doesn't work. And then eventually it does work, and you move on to the next thing. That's the process of really being an engineer or being a technologist. And then my other favorite crew, OVOXO, I would say is to bring somebody with you. So it's not just me. Like, I could never be standing here right now if it was just me. Like, I have a business partner. He drove all the way from Detroit to Grand Rapids because I couldn't drive myself here. Like I said, I had a friend who pushed me to be a TA. She said, you're good enough. You should just go for it. It wasn't me telling myself that. It was her really giving me that confidence. I have a friend that I live with now that I've been friends with for years, and, like, I swear every time I do something, she makes me feel like I'm the most special person in the world. I'm like, okay, calm down. I'm not that awesome. But she thinks that I am, and she always reminds me of that. And, your friends are the most important part of that process. Your friends, your family, your teachers, like, people that support you. You need to spend time taking advantage of having people that believe in you, because there's going to be plenty enough people to say negative things about you as an individual or whatever the things are that you decide to do. There's always somebody to say something negative. But those people that come and they make sure and they keep you grounded and they support you, take advantage of that, because I've definitely been guilty of trying to do everything myself. And when I realized that I had other people to help me, it was scary to trust people. It was scary to think that I could lean on somebody and that they would actually care about things for me. But once I started to open myself up to that, that's really when I felt like things started to change. And then a little bit about life and technology. Maybe some of these are questions or things that you might have heard that you would be interested in knowing the answers to. So first of all, people are like, it's so hard. Technology, it can be difficult, but to me what's difficult is like cleaning. Like, I don't like to clean. Like, I can program all night long, but then if you ask me to, like, clean my room, that's like a whole nother story. And even as an adult, I really still that's something that's hard to me. So hard is subjective. Like, hard is up to a particular individual. It might be hard to some people because that's not what they're interested in, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it. And like I said, I like a challenge. So to me, hard just means it's something for me to try. Stereotypes. So there's always this talk about stereotypes and diversity in the industry and like what it's really like on a day-to-day if you're, say, the only black woman on your team, or you're the only woman on your team, or whatever the case may be. I would say that, yeah, these things really happen. Like, people really do have issues. But to me, I don't care about that because, like I said before, when you know yourself, nobody else can tell you anything. And the biggest issue I think that we're having right now is just like we have so many people afraid to get in because it seems like it's such a negative environment. But if more of us were here, it could be a better environment. And so, yeah, there's times when people look at me and they just assume like, oh, she has on makeup and pink, so she's not a technology person. It's like, yes, I like pink. Yes, I wear glitter on my nails. And yes, I can code you under a table. Like, those things are not exclusive, you know? So sometimes you can think about those in a negative way, but to me, I feel like it's always the opportunity to show somebody something different. People have stereotypes because they just haven't seen anything else. And there's always those people who you can't convince. But most people, once they understand and they have exposure to something that's new to them, it really opens their eyes. So be that person who changes somebody's mind about something. And then, do you have to be a programmer to be in technology? No, not necessarily. There's so many other jobs. There's so many other things that you could do in the industry. If you like to build hardware, even if you like to, say, if you're a people person and you want to focus on customers or you want to do sales, the tech industry is so huge. But that technology mindset and that skill set is really, to me, where we're going. So I would say you don't have to be a programmer. Programming is good. That's what I do. But I have friends that are electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, petroleum engineers, types of engineers I never even heard of. And everybody does something different. And everybody thinks everybody else's job is hard. But we all love what we do. What kind of skills do you need to be in technology? To me, there's really only one skill. And that is if you love to solve problems and you don't stop trying to solve a problem. If you are that person that says, oh, well, this thing is broken, I need to fix it, or, oh, these people are arguing, I need to resolve it, or, oh, here's a math problem and I like to work through it. If you like to solve problems, then technology is for you. The biggest challenge in getting into the industry is something we call imposter syndrome. Has anybody ever heard of imposter syndrome? Literally nobody. Okay, so imposter syndrome is this concept that you always think you're not good enough. Like, programmers especially suffer from this, where you go into a job and you get hired for the job, and all you keep thinking is, they picked the wrong person, they're going to discover that I don't know anything, they're going to fire me, my whole life is going to be over. Like, most of the people that I know, especially that are new, this is all they think about when they're in their jobs instead of thinking about success. So definitely you should take some time to read a little bit about imposter syndrome, but that is the biggest challenge in becoming a technologist. So if you can be actively engaged in keeping yourself from downplaying your skills and downplaying yourself, then I think you're good to go. And lastly, I would say just keep going from here, because today might be your first time ever learning anything about technology. It really doesn't matter. Like, you're already light years ahead of where I was, and you can do whatever you want to do at this point. And you don't have to go into technology if you really don't want to. But you really should know that it is an option for you. And if it's something that you love and that you're passionate about, there's people that are going to help you get there. So hopefully what you're learning today and the people that you're meeting, you're taking the opportunity to really figure out what it is that you're interested in. And like I said before, if you do want to contact me, you're welcome to use my Twitter handle. You're welcome to use my email, and I can provide that information to the organizers as well if anybody wants to reach out. But thank you for having me.